Hello, NEAM. Kind of reconnected there for a second. My name is Jamie, and today I'm going to continue with my series that I'm doing for 2026, all about the ABCs of art. And today is letter D. So for the first week, I did the letter A for art and talked a little bit about just art practices and art in general. And then for the letter B, I did blending and showed 3 different ways to blend. And I'll show you, I did a page for the A, a page for the B where I blended and then added some things to it. And then last week, after the video, I finished the color wheel for letter C. And I have to say something about last week's video. After I started painting in the rest of the color wheel, when I was going through and, just really quickly doing the ruler for the 12 sections, I realized when I was painting in there are 16. So you can probably see like some of my colors are very similar, like these two, very similar, like these two are really similar, because I had 16 spaces to fill in instead of 12. It still works. It still gives me, a good idea of a color wheel. And then what I did is I just started blending black and white and just came up with all of these different colors. Really like some of these with the purples and the deep magenta, even that light pink I really liked. And I was kind of surprised about this kind of peachy color and, lots of greens and the blues. And so all kinds of different colors just from 3 colors that I used and black and white. So today I'm going to quickly, it's just going to be a little bit of the fundamentals, the basics of drawing for the letter D. I have had a lot of people ask over the years that I've had my business about drawing in particular, because I feel like some people, you think 2 ways probably about drawing. One set of people, I don't know how that, one set of people believe that you're like born with a talent to draw, right? You have a talent. It's just something that, good morning, Kathy. It's just something that you are like born with, and you're just like one of the lucky ones that got talent, for drawing. And I probably believed that for a little while, like when I was younger. And then there's another set of people, especially people who are teachers like me, who believe that you can be taught and you can learn how to draw. And that's what I want to explain to you today. I'm actually going to tell you the number 1 thing that you need to do if you want to be better at drawing something that's in front of you. So I'm just going to qualify it with that, something that's in front of you. And it's not what you might think, which is practice. Because of course you have to practice. You have to practice to get better. Even people who were born with the talent, they have to practice, right? That's how you get better. You put in the reps, like they say, the 10,000 hours is what it takes to master something. You put in the reps, you put in the practice. So of course, that is not it. That is not the one thing that you need to do if you're drawing something in front of you. So I'm going to show you a couple of basics. I'm going to show you I couldn't find everything in my studio here that I wanted to show you the way that I used to teach my high school students to draw portraits. So if you have seen my larger book that I've been working in for portraits, I'll show you, this is the one that I just did last night, and then this one over here. These are like next level. They're like next level drawings, and it's not the way that I taught in my high school class about how to start doing portraits. So what I'm going to show you today is how I taught that process to my high school students in a more simplified way with not a portrait. So you'll see, and I'm gonna get a couple of things ready. So the nice thing about drawing is all you need is a pencil. All you need is a pencil and something to draw on. It doesn't even have to be paper necessarily. I don't even use an eraser. So literally all you need is a pencil. These have awful erasers. They're hard. They don't really erase. It's like they have this coating on them or something. So a pencil, that's all you need. Just like a regular number 2 pencil. I am not going to show you shading today. That's really not like in the same category as drawing itself. I am literally going to show you how to create something with a line. That's what I think of as drawing. So you need paper. I'm going to be doing mine in my journal that I was using for the color wheel. And the process that I'm going to show you today, you need just a very simple image. Like when I'm talking simple, I'm just like one thing, and you can do this like from something printed off. Like I'm not going to draw from something in front of me with this method. So something just very simple, a picture of an apple. Literally, if you have one of those $1.25, I guess it is now, coloring books from the Dollar Tree, you could use, if it was very simple, something like that. I am going to use this line drawing that I have of these leaves. So there's just 5 leaves on there. And it is, I don't know, whatever size it, like a 3x5 or something like that. That's about what size I'm going to use. So just something very simple, just so you learn this technique. The other thing that I'm going to use today to create the method, so this will be something that you could reuse, is some type of piece of plastic, acetate, something that, is a little like thicker. And I could not find my piece of acetate that I already have ready. I have a stack of them, and I just feel like I've put them someplace with other drawing things that I don't know where that is. So what I'm going to use today is one of these, what do you call these? Like a page protector? Is that what these are called? With the holes in there. So it's a little bit thicker, right? So it's a little bit, and the nice thing is it has a pocket. So you'll see what that is for. And then to get that ready, I'm going to use a Sharpie and a ruler. So if you want to kind of prepare, what we're going to be doing is making a grid. And this is a technique that goes back like 1200s, 1400s. There was an artist, I do not know how to pronounce his name. It was like Albrecht Dürer, D-U-R-E-R. And I'm pretty sure that he's the one that came up with this method of looking through a grid to be able to draw something that was in front of him. So that is what we're going to be doing, is drawing a grid, and then I'm going to use this image and put a grid over top of it as well. And you'll see how I do the grid. But those are the only things that you need. I'm not going to show you shading. I'm literally going to just show you the one thing that you need to do if you would like to learn how to draw something that is in front of you. With this, it's this piece of paper here. So while I'm getting this set up here and showing you how to do the grid, I will just tell you that I believe the official count for the snow here in Ohio was 8 inches, I heard. I'm going to try to find a piece of white paper to put behind this, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I think it was about 8 inches. I know there were areas, and maybe ours was one of those areas where it was a little bit more, but I believe that that was about our total. So I'm not going anywhere today. I'm hanging out in my studio, doing this live, creating probably some more portraits, and that is what I am doing. So I'm going to take this image here, the size that I am doing, and I'm going to, now what you could do is make an entire grid over this whole piece of acetate here, or, you know, plastic or whatever you're using. But I'm just going to use this one little section here. And let me see if I can get an idea how long this is. It's almost 5 inches. And you'll be able to see this grid a little bit better once I lift this picture off here. And then what is it? It's about 4 by 5 inches. And that's just kind of like a nice small size to be able to work with. So that is my size that I'm going to use. And I would just do like a 1-inch grid. And it's not going to work out exactly like that, but that's just, if you did this whole page, I would just do a 1-inch grid. And I will, I'll show you how that works. So I'm just going to use the width of the ruler, actually. Just makes it nice and easy. And just line that up. And I'm actually lifting this, trying to lift it, just to give the Sharpie a little bit more time to just kind of dry. You want to use a Sharpie marker because it's permanent, and that way it won't smear. Shannon, you watched last night on the video that I did of my portrait. Is that the one that you watched? I've been trying to remember to turn my camera on and record kind of the process. I've had a lot of people asking about how to do my, how I've been doing the portraits. A lot of questions about like, where am I getting the images? How am I starting? So I've been doing a couple of those little videos just to kind of show my process, but I haven't really been like explaining how I've been doing the process. So I would love to know, as you're watching this, if I've had people ask if I would teach it, and be the teacher in me is trying to figure that out. So if you would be interested in learning how I've been doing my, sorry, the ruler hit the scissors, which hit the stand there. So that is my little grid that I have there. So you can see, and it doesn't really matter that this is a little bit smaller, because what I'm going to do is the same grid on this piece of paper. So I think I will just put it kind of right here in the middle. And yeah, being all precise, I'm going to do this in pencil. So on my paper, I'm going to do pencil. So Shannon says yes, she would like to know how to do the portraits. I've had a lot of people ask, and I would like to know if I taught a workshop on how to create, because it's more than drawing, what exactly is it that you, well, that didn't show up. What exactly is it that you struggle with in trying to do portraits? Like, are you at the very beginning? You don't even know where to start? Do you just want like ideas? Do you need to know proportions? Like, tell me what it is, because that will really help me to kind of figure out what direction to go with doing some type of a workshop like that. Like I said, I used to teach high school art, and we would do portraits, and this was the method that we taught, was doing a grid like this. That's not how I've been doing the portraits in my Portrait a Day challenge. I have not been using a grid. So that is the size paper. It still didn't go over here. And then what I'm going to do is just make sure I do the grid in the same way over here that I did on the acetate. Now, this is the very simplified version of doing the grid. And it's a little uneven down here. And not the way that we taught, because we actually had the students bring in photos. So they brought in baby photos of themselves. They were so cute. Shannon says proportions. And there are definite proportions to follow when doing a portrait. So that is really good to know. So our students brought in baby photos, and then, you know, they were all different sizes. So what we had them do was a grid that was proportional, because we wanted to have them do it larger. That's a lot of math, and that's more mathing than I want to do this early in the morning. So, but we helped them to figure out so that they could take a photo that was, you know, smaller, and they could actually enlarge it and be larger. So here is the nice thing about this. I like having the acetate plastic grid because I can reuse it, right? If you don't have a piece of plastic, you can actually do the grid on the photo, you know, on the printout that you have, on the, you know, in my case, like a line drawing. So this is what I'm going to be drawing with the grid on there. The other thing that you can do is make, let me see if I have some kind of a piece of paper that I can use for this. Oh, I'll do this. Oh, here's a fun little portrait that I did last night when I had extra paint. This one's just like for fun. It's not even like part of my portrait challenge. I don't even know if it's completely finished, but that was one that I did. So I'm going to take a piece of this paper here. Okay, are you ready? Here is the one thing that you need to do if you want to get better at drawing what is in front of you. You ready? The one thing that you need to do, I'm going to go over here. You'll see what I'm doing here in a second. This way. The one thing that you need to do, you saw what I was drawing there. It's a leaf. The one thing that you need to do is to not name what you are drawing. Not name what you are drawing. And I will explain to you why. So yes, definitely practice. But if you really want to get better at drawing what is in front of you, you have to stop naming what it is that you're drawing and learn how to name like an artist names. So I will explain that to you. Different from the thirds rule. Shannon, explain to me what the thirds rule is. That sounds more to me like a composition kind of thing, like you want to put things in one of the areas where the lines, 3 lines, come to a point. Is that what you're talking about with composition? Okay. Do you see what I did there? I made what's called a viewfinder. So I just took the width of the ruler, right? I just overlapped it, and just instead of measuring, that's why I used the width of the ruler. And I created this box that is the same size as the grid that I'm using. It's the same size. So what I can do now is block off just this one little grid here, just the one little box. And you could actually have a viewfinder for here too, but I'm going to put it, let's start in this corner. So if I put my grid in this corner, there's nothing. There's nothing in that box right there on the grid. But then when I slide over, do you see that? Here's what the grid does for you in this viewfinder. It blocks out everything else, and it makes it very hard to name. I don't want to name what it is that I'm drawing, and I'll give you a little trick to make this even easier for you. What you're doing when you're not naming something, you're using words like line, shape, proportion. How close is this line to the edge of the viewfinder? The space. You're using art words. You're using the words that an artist uses. And the reason that you don't want to name that this is a leaf is because that turns on the left side of your brain, the logical side of your brain, the analytical side, the verbal side, the side that says, oh, I have a symbol for a leaf. Let me show you what it looks like. That is not how you will get better at drawing. So I'm just going to turn this up here for a second just so I can get this across to you. If you want to get better at drawing something that is in front of you, like this picture that I showed to you of the little leaves, you have to learn how to turn off that left side of your brain. And there are all kinds of like exercises and things that you can do, and those are the things that I taught in my drawing class at the high school, and those would be some of the things that I would bring into a class about a workshop about doing portraits, is all of those exercises. This is one, and I'm going to show you a little trick that will make it even easier to turn that off and turn on the creative side of your brain, which says, how thick is this line? How far away is this line from the edge? How does this curve relate to the edge? It's all about like the relationship of how those lines, those shapes are, really it's all line, how the lines form a shape inside of that box. And that's all that you need to do. And when you can do that, and this grid process makes it so much easier, you will be amazed at how it switches on your creative side of your brain. And that, because I have practiced that so much, that is how I'm able to do those portraits just freehand from looking at a reference. And I have been using references. And if I do, or when I do a portrait workshop, I'll show you more about how I use the references and things like that. But this skill can be learned. This skill that I'm teaching you can be practiced, and you can get better so that you can work your way up to doing portraits freehand by looking at a source. I will just be honest with you and tell you, I do not draw very well from my just imagination, from just whatever I have in my head, because I don't know, even at 10,000 hours of drawing, if that would even be enough for me to draw accurately what is, I feel like I hear somebody sweeping off our porch, but I don't know who it is. Oh no, never mind. That's my dog chewing on his rawhide. So when you can do that, I don't even know that 10,000 hours is enough for me to be able to accurately draw something just from my brain. I use references, I use photos, I use different parts of things that I see to be able to, and then I add my own, but especially for the portraits, to get the proportions, I have been using images. So just wanted to explain to you about that. But let me know if you'd be interested in a portrait workshop, which would include how to kind of flip on the right side of your brain, the creative side of your brain. So let me know in the comments there. Hi there, Lori. And I will go ahead and show you how to get started doing this grid here. So let me see if I can put both of these in the screen here for you. Here is my other trick for you. If this is still not enough and you're looking in the grid, oh, I was starting over here. You're looking in the grid and you're still seeing a leaf and you still don't know how to, hey there, Tony. Tony was one of the ones that said, can you please do a workshop on how to do portraits? Because I want to get better at doing portraits. If you still are naming this leaf, here is my other trick for you. Yes, Shannon, I have to have references. Turn your canvas, your paper, whatever it is, upside down, and turn this upside down. Now, you can imagine, for me now, it's right side up, but you can imagine that, oh, and I would be drawing this one. You can imagine that for a portrait, if you did something like this where you turned it upside down, it somehow shifts your brain into not being able to name the eyes and the nose and the lips and the ears and whatever you have the most problem with drawing in portraits. It will just turn that off. Doing the grid, having the viewfinder, turning it upside down, I'm telling you, you can draw anything that you want. Like, you can duplicate this image that I have here onto here. And I say all of this now because I know when I start drawing, here's the other thing. I'm going to tell you this too. I'm going to slide up here and I'm going to tell you this. Here's the thing with drawing. And when you are able to know how to switch on that creative side of your brain, tell me if this has ever happened to you. You get painting, you get drawing, you get doing something creative, and all of a sudden it's 3 hours later. And you can't hear anything else that's going on. You can't hear when the phone rings. You can't hear music playing. You can't hear someone calling your name. It somehow flips on this like non-verbal part of your brain when you're in the flow of being creative. And that is what's going to happen when I start drawing. I know that when I start drawing, I become so focused, I can't use my verbal words to explain to you what it is that I'm doing. So I'm kind of explaining to you now so that I know I'm going to trail off at some point. If you've ever seen a video where I'm drawing, you know exactly what I mean, because it happens when I draw and it happens when I am working on the potter's wheel. I can't explain there either. So I'm going to take what I see in this grid and I'm going to transfer it over to here. And I'll start by kind of, yes, lost in the moment, Shannon, that is exactly. I can see on this that there's a double, or there's a thickness to the line. So I am going to draw that thickness, which is just going to give me more practice to look at proportions and how far away and all those kinds of things. And I'm going to start just kind of like in the corner here. And I'm going to see that this point is about 1/3 of the way down. And it's about 1/3 of the way from the edge. So I'm going to put just a little dot so I know like where I'm going. And I will start, it starts like in the corner here. And I'm going to look ahead to where it is that I'm going. So I'm going to draw a line up to that point. And then this line I see curves down a little bit and then it curves out and it's just a little bit away from the edge. So again, I'm going to put a little dot. And I do draw really lightly at first. That's why I don't really use an eraser. So it kind of dips down. And then it kind of flares out. And probably flared a little bit more than I needed. So I can kind of refine that a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and do a little point where this comes to like the thickness of the line. And I'm going to draw down this time. And it got a little thick down there, so I can kind of refine that. And then I can tell where this one, it gets a little bit thinner as it goes down. And then I can slide my ruler or my grid over. And inside that one, there's just a little tiny thickness of a line. If I go over into this one, there's just a little tiny point. And you can get a viewfinder to cover this up too. Kathy, I think I did use the like a grid idea, but I can cover up, you know, this way it helps me to kind of connect things, but you can have a grid, you know, a viewfinder over this too. And then I'm just going to slide down, and in that next one I see kind of a little point there, and I'm just going to slide down, and then I can connect. And you can measure, like you can take your pencil and measure, and then measure over into here, and that's like another little trick that you can do. And I see a little tiny line that's coming up here, just kind of at an angle. And then have this line, little tiny line that I see. And notice I don't even know what this is right now because the rest of it is covered up. This one has a little bit of a thickness to it. And then there's nothing down in this little square here. So then I'm just going to go over, there's nothing. And now this one has a couple of different lines. So I can tell that it goes kind of over here, so I'll put a little dot. And now I already know where it connects over here. You know, it's covered up on my paper over here, but I'll come down and then it curves. Oh, I didn't start up high enough. This is why I draw really lightly. You could have an eraser. I like to either have a kneaded eraser or I like to have a white eraser. I don't know if I have, oh, one of these kind of erasers, because it doesn't make all the little things that a pink eraser does. So I was drawing the thickness of the line there, and then I have that gets really thin. I will probably fill this in with a Sharpie, so it'll, you know, I'll be able to kind of refine the lines a little bit. And then I move it up to here. I turn my viewfinder around, it's getting hung up on. Okay, so I just did that one, move up to here. But you can see that, making my little dots here. I mean, you can imagine once even just this little small grid, you know, would take me a little bit to transfer all of the information over. And I can tell that came a little bit close up in there. Let's see, wider there. So I can kind of tell this is a leaf on here, but I'm not naming it. I'm not naming that it's the side of the leaf. I'm just looking at the lines. I'm looking at how they connect together, how far away they are from each other. Those are the ways to see like an artist sees. You know, when I was in college, I actually, believe it or not, started in accounting. I know that that's the least creative thing, farthest away from art or teaching art, but that was where I started. And I, in my second year, took a class. It was just a community class. It wasn't even for credit. And it was called Drawing and Seeing. And that was where I learned this technique. I actually already knew it. I think that my high school, you know what? It was not my high school because I didn't even take art in high school. I did not take art in high school. I did not know that I was going to be on an art track into like none of that. I didn't take any of that. It was in junior high. I learned this grid method, and I learned how to enlarge a drawing. And I actually did a drawing of my friend. Oh, I went ahead and filled that one in over there. Now I've already done that one, so I'm going down to here. And it was just, it's always been, since that class that I took, it's been how if I really want to get proportions correct, I use the grid method. In my portrait challenge that I'm doing, I'm just really kind of playing in there, and I'm just kind of playing with different techniques and trying out things. So I'm not really as concerned about proportion as much. But if I was, I would definitely, ooh, this has all kinds of lines in here. See, right then I came up to it, and even though I was saying that they were lines, it was a little intimidating at first, but I'm just going to take it, and I'm going to start with this thick line here first. And I know this pencil line is probably light, so I will show it to you as I get it finished here up closer. But ever since that class, that drawing and seeing, and I learned from a book, which when I do the portrait workshop, I will talk about the book. We'll do some exercises from the book. And that has really been what I have used if I want to, I feel like, oh, that comes a little bit to a point there. I didn't have that. You can see it's hard for me to talk, and actually I've talked quite a bit more than I thought that I would be able to while I was drawing. And so what I'm doing when I'm looking at this, I'm looking back and forth and checking and comparing, and you know, part of the time I'm looking at what's inside the grid, part of the time over here, and I'm constantly just checking and drawing really slowly so that I can, you know, get all the information. This is probably one of the last ones that has, there's probably a little bit more right over here. So here, that's right in the middle. So I'm going to do a point, a little dot, so I know kind of where that line is going. And so I kind of look ahead to that line there. And when I fill that in, I'll be able to thicken that line up a little bit. And then I have this, I'm going to put a little dot where where this line goes here. I know this would probably be easier if you could see from up above what I'm doing. So I might do another one where I kind of show a little bit more of the process, like from overhead and closer. Sometimes it's hard to even come up with words when I'm so focused on what it is that I'm doing here. So I'm just kind of continuing to move the grid. Move the viewfinder. That's what I meant, the viewfinder. So I know you probably told me in the comments, I know where a lot of you live, you got a massive amount of snow like we did. I think that our total was 8 inches or so. I think we actually got a little bit more than that, but okay, the proportion of that one is a little bit off. I don't think that I went over quite enough there, but I'm gonna finish off. This should be the last one here. And I think it'll be pretty close. So I'm going to take this out here. And for you, I was drawing it upside down. But there is, and I'll fill it in with the Sharpie, you know, to get like the thickness of the lines. But you can see that the proportions are so much better than if I just would have been, you know, freehanding them. I do freehand stuff, but I really have practiced a lot. Practiced going back and forth, and some of the techniques from the book that I was talking about that I do in the portrait workshop, and all of those different techniques, the main thing is not naming, because as soon as you start naming that you're trying to draw a nose, and in your mind you already believe that a nose is hard to draw, it's going to be even harder, because your left brain is going to say, here, I have a symbol for what a nose looks like. And then you're not going to be happy with it, because it's not going to look like the nose that you're looking at, because it's a symbol. And the same with eyes, the same with lips. So you have to be able to learn to draw exactly what you see, the lines that you see. And that's how you translate what it is that you see onto paper. Like I said, I do not have nearly enough practice to be able to draw just out of my head, but you sit something in front of me and I can pretty much draw it, and I don't have to use the grid because I've, you know, done that enough. It might be a little, and I might have to do some refining, but I have trained my eye, and that's really what drawing takes, is for you to train your eye to draw what it is that you see, not what you think you see. And that is my lesson for D, for drawing, really like drawing basics of using a grid and being able to take what it is that you see and draw it onto there. And, you know, after I did the Sharpie, then I could erase all the lines and everything on there. So I hope that this was helpful. Let me know if the tip about just drawing what you see, the lines and everything, was helpful. The grid idea was helpful if you've never seen that before, or the little tip about flipping it upside down. Because sometimes when I'm using a grid, when I've done like some larger portraits and things, I have to turn it upside down because there's just no other way for me to get the proportions. There's something that really, like literally when you flip the paper, but something that flips in your brain when you look at something upside down that helps you more. And maybe it's just another trick to be able to turn off the left side of your brain and to not name what it is that you're drawing. So that is my little couple little tips for you for drawing and learning to draw better for the ABCs of art for the letter D. And next week will be the letter E. So I hope you come back and watch next week. If you ever want to watch the replay, I am creating a playlist over on my YouTube channel, so you can watch all of the ABCs of art videos over there, and kind of if you miss any of them or anything over there. And please let me know if you would like and be interested in a portrait workshop, because I do have that in my mind to figure out the best way according to whatever it is that you would like to learn to do that as a workshop. So I will see you next week at 10:30 a.m. Remember, if you want a text, I did put that on a post earlier, but just let me know if you want a text reminder when I go live, and I usually send those out like right at 10:30 as a reminder with the link to come right here and catch the live video. So I'll see you then.